Sup, you beautiful bastards? Hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. Welcome back to the DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing that we're going to talk about today is a story that actually broke in the middle of me filming this show, and it is an update on Mark Salling. It was reported today that the former Glee star is dead at the age of 35. Initial reports saying it looks like an apparent suicide. We've talked about Salling in the past. He was charged with possession of child pornography. A search warrant for his home revealed over 50,000 child porn images on his computer and a thumb drive. Prosecutors also saying he had 600 videos of underage children being abused. He ended up pleading guilty to possession of child pornography. He was set to be sentenced March 7. It looked like he was facing between 4 and 7 years in prison. He would have to be a registered sex offender, and now we're getting this news. And I had a lot of people on Twitter asking, what do you feel about this? And my response to that is, I'm almost never happy when someone dies. There are exceptions, like when we found out bin Laden had been killed. I was very happy around that announcement. I think I was high-fiving and hugging people. And here, when I look at this situation, I don't have that same feeling. I'm not happy, but I'm also not sad. For some reason, there's this feeling that when someone dies, you forgive some of their sins. They're still a human being. But no, we're talking about a convicted pedophile here. And this is the part in any story like this where there's a very vocal minority that says, hey, there's a difference between pedophiles and child molesters. And yes, but understand, if a pedophile is going out and getting and consuming child pornography, they are part of the problem. The children in those videos and images, they are being exploited, they are being abused, and the people consuming that content are part of the reason. And so when I look at this story, while I may not be having an emotional reaction, I look at it and go, the net result here is one less pedophile on this planet, and if it kept trending that way, great. I do thank him for saving the American taxpayer money, and really the only people I feel bad for in this instance is his family. Suicide is a very real issue, but when someone commits suicide, it does not absolve them of what they have done on this planet. I saw Salling's attorney release the statement, Mark was a gentle and loving person, a person of great creativity who was doing his best to atone for some serious mistakes and errors of judgment. And I have a problem with that for two reasons. The first being that he was creative. I've seen people saying they were conflicted on how to feel because yes, he was a pedophile, but also they really liked him on Glee. To me, that's personally a ridiculous mindset. You're a big fan of someone's character, so I don't know how to feel about them being a convicted pedophile. No, it seems like it should be pretty easy. The second reason it bugs me is it doesn't feel like the words mistake and errors of judgment should be applied to downloading, possessing 50,000 images, 600 videos of underage children being abused. But that said, I want to pass the question off to you. What is your opinion here? Do you agree with how I'm feeling about this? Do you disagree with how I'm feeling about this? I'd love to know your thoughts. And then we had Hawaii back in the news. Remember how people in Hawaii were terrified for around 38 minutes because they got an alert saying ballistic missile incoming, not a drill? And Hawaiian authorities explained this as this was just someone hitting the wrong button. Their explanation that, test drill and real drill, just buttons on top of one another. Well, according to a new report, that's not what happened. According to the initial findings of an investigation by federal officials, the night shift supervisor for this organization decided that they were going to have an unannounced drill. We have to test the crew, make sure they are on their A game at all times. Well, apparently when the audio alert played for the crew, it did include the audio, exercise, exercise, exercise. But apparently the audio for that exercise that says exercise, exercise, exercise also included the audio, this is not a drill. And so now what we've learned, thanks to the officer who actually sent out the alert to everyone's phones, is that he didn't hear the exercise part, but did hear the this is not a drill part. So this alert went out because this person actually thought a missile was coming towards Hawaii, which looking back at the situation makes a lot more sense because reportedly after selecting, this is a real alert or this is a drill, there's also reportedly a confirmation screen where you have to say, yes, this is actually happening, or no, whoops, sorry, I hit the wrong button. And actually, a last second update to this story, that emergency worker has now been fired. According to a report released today, the employee has been a source of concern for the same staff for over 10 years. So still an incredibly ridiculous, seemingly easy to avoid situation, but now it appears that we have more answers. Then in what are some people outraged about today news, let's talk about Kim Kardashian. Kim, for whatever reason yesterday, probably that she got tired that a lot of her tweets were getting less than 1,000 retweets, decided to go on a picture posting spree. She posted picture after picture showcasing her various assets. And while she got some pushback from some people saying, really, you're posting these, you're a mother? Which I'll say, just because you have children doesn't mean you are not your own person anymore, that you can't be sexual or sexualized if you want to be. That's stupid in my opinion, but the reason she came under fire wasn't actually because of that. It was because of her braids and something she said in a video on Sunday.
So guys, I did Bo braids. And I'm really into it.
Blvd, if you don't know, is a white actress. She was styled with braids in the 1979 movie 10. Also, in one of the pictures she posted, she included the caption Bo West. And many people were quick to call her out for this. One user writing they are called Fulani braids, or some may even say cornrows. You could have called them either one, but you called them Blvd, giving credit to a white woman for a black style, knowing you already catch heat for culture vulturing. Another writing, Dear Kim Kardashian, your quote, new hairstyle is not new, nor are they Blvd braids because she didn't create the shit. Call them what they are and quit appropriating our hairstyles as new. Others angry not only just about the attribution situation, but that she did it in general. Some tweeting, Kim, you look great, but this is not an appropriate hairstyle for you to wear. Please take it out and read up on cultural appropriation. Another, first of all, this look is not for her, and second, when is the Kardashian family going to stop appropriating black culture? Some users also defending her, saying Bo Derek did have this style in 1979, so she's technically correct. She just chose this reference, what's the big deal? And my whole response to this situation is, really, internet? You're gonna make me defend Kim Kardashian? As far as the people closing the door on her, saying that style's not for you, you're not allowed, no, I disagree completely. As far as the attribution angle, I can understand some people's frustrations. I'm not personally frustrated, I'm not offended, I don't think Kim Kardashian needs to apologize. Granted, if you really look into the history of braiding, it goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's also a part of many cultures, so when I say I understand, if you feel like you own that in some way, I understand. But feelings aren't facts, and so in general, the whole thing feels like it's just being perpetrated by people who are professionally offended. But of course, that said, this is the Philip DeFranco show. I give you the story, I give you my opinion, and then I want to hear from you. You, as a group, have so many different backgrounds, so many different opinions, and I'd love to know your thoughts here. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today and Today in Awesome. And the first bit of awesome is we got a trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp, and we got a trailer for Duncan Jones's new movie, Mute. It's going to be coming out on Netflix. Duncan Jones, of course, the man that directed Moon, Source Code, or we don't talk really about Warcraft. It looks like a fantastic, trippy mess. That said, we also got a trailer for something that looks far trippier, and that is the trailer for the horror movie Hereditary. I'm excited for this one not only because the trailer looks good, but because people that watched it at Sundance say it's amazing. Then, keeping with the theme of something horror, we have a horror short. It's called Your Date Is Here. It's just 6 minutes. I highly recommend it if you have 6 minutes to spare. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. And then let's talk about President Trump and the Russian sanctions. Today you may have seen one of the headlines like this one, saying Trump refuses to impose new Russia sanctions despite law passed by US Congress over election hacking. And this has sparked questions and outrage of the Trump administration's perceived lack of commitment to take a strong stance on Russia. Let's explain why this is a big deal and also how the White House is justifying it. And to do that, let's first jump back to July of 2017. Congress almost unanimously passes the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. We're talking a vote of 517 to 5. That's an insane vote for Congress. They could go outside, say, oh, the sky is blue, and they'd have like a 10-hour heated debate on the floor. The vote would end up being much tighter, I feel. So it goes through the House and the Senate. The president doesn't like it, but he still signs it into law. With how much support this bill had, even if Trump had vetoed it, it would have been able to pass. So what did the law do? Well, put up sanctions against Iran and North Korea for their continued pursuit of ICBMs, and critical to the current situation in headlines, also imposed rules for sanctions against Russia. And this was meant to punish Russia for a few things: their annexation of Crimea, their arming of rebel separatists in eastern Ukraine, the Russian meddling in the 2016 elections. And this bill was supposed to punish Russian energy, defense, and intelligence sectors. Also, the bill removed the president's power to change sanctions as freely, this by imposing a waiting period. And this meant the president could not unilaterally change sanctions, which was something Congress feared from this president. And despite signing the bill, Trump said, in its haste to pass this legislation, the Congress included a number of clearly unconstitutional provisions, later adding this bill remains seriously flawed, particularly because it encroaches on the executive branch's authority to negotiate. Congress could not even negotiate a healthcare bill after 7 years of talking. By limiting the executive's flexibility, this bill makes it harder for the United States to strike good deals for the American people and will drive China, Russia, and North Korea much closer together. Now, today is not actually the first time Trump has missed a deadline on this law. The first one was on October 1st. The Trump administration was supposed to issue a blacklist, issuing, quote, regulations or other guidance to specify the persons that are a part of or operate for or on behalf of the defense and intelligence sectors of the government of the Russian Federation. And it took roughly 3 weeks and pressure from Congress for the administration to finally issue the blacklist. So then comes the big deadline, 11:59 p.m., January 29th. The administration is supposed to have done quite a few things by this point. They were supposed to issue a quote-unquote Putin list. These are individuals with deep political ties to Putin or who have made large sums of money because of their connections to Putin. Here, the administration barely put out the list right before the deadline. They listed 114 political figures, 96 billionaires and oligarchs in Russia. Also a note here, they issued a classified list of people, but we don't know who else is on that list. Next up were the sanctions most people viewed as the big sanction. CAATSA required that the U.S. impose sanctions on countries and entities that are doing, quote, significant business with those on the October 1st blacklist. And these sanctions were meant to deter countries from buying Russian arms and thus significantly hurt the Russian arms industry. However, the Trump administration declined to do so, and this is where things get really heated. Many are upset by this move. Representative Eliot Engel of the House Foreign Affairs Committee saying, I'm fed up waiting for this administration to protect our country and our elections. They've now shown us they won't act, so it's time for Congress to do more. The Trump administration had a decision to make whether they would follow the law and crack down on those responsible for attacking American democracy in 2016. They chose instead to let Russia off the hook again. Claire McCaskill tweeting, Congress voted 517 to 5 to impose sanctions on Russia. The president decides to ignore that law. Folks, that is a constitutional crisis. There should be outrage in every corner of this country. And a note there, as this appears to be a reference to Article Article 2, Section 3, and Clause 5 of the Constitution, which is a thing I totally know and not something that I found out thanks to the internet, that states the president shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. But on that note, let's talk about why the Trump administration say they have their reasons for why the sanctions haven't been imposed. They're still being widely criticized, but it's important to know what their rationale is. And we had State Department official Heather Nauert trying to explain, saying sanctions on specific entities or individuals will not need to be imposed because the legislation is in fact serving as a deterrent. Since the enactment of the CATSA legislation, we estimate that foreign governments have abandoned planned or announced purchases of several $billions in Russian defense acquisitions. And so essentially the argument is we don't need to put sanctions in place because the threat of sanctions has caused deals to be thrown out. However, a point of contention is that Nauert didn't also cite evidence to back up the claim. And then another argument from the White House comes down to definitions. CATSA only says that entities and countries doing, quote, significant transaction with Russian defense industries. However, they say the document fails to define what, quote, significant transactions are. The law also allows the administration to delay sanctions if they see an entity is, quote, significantly scaling back their deals with Russia. They just need to notify Congress every 180 days. However, significantly is not defined in the document. So based on that technicality, you could have so-and-so is still doing business with Russia. You could say, well, is it for $1 bajillion? And they'd go like, well, it's like $500 million. And then you could go, that doesn't sound significant to me. Bajillion's kind of the entry point for significant in my book. Also, because I know sometimes some not so smart people watch these videos because it pops up in trending. Yes, I know bajillion's not a real number. That's kind of the point. Okay. Also, another important note here is last month there was a list published of potential sanction targets, those who worked with those on the blacklist. The problem for the United States is there are major US and NATO allies on that list. Turkey, for example, is a major ally in NATO. They also have a major deal with Russia for anti-aircraft missile systems. Saudi Arabia as well has major deals with Russia and is a huge US partner in the region. India is also a huge partner for the United States and a massive buyer of Russian arms. And so the argument there is that sanctioning all of those countries, all of those allies, would put the Trump administration in an awkward place and put the United States in an awkward place. And while the administration still holds the right to impose sanctions, they're saying that their ability to do so is a deterrent enough. But that said, all of this is happening the same day CIA Director Mike Pompeo stated that he has, quote, every expectation that Russia will try to meddle in the 2018 midterms. And so many people are seeing this as the Trump administration taking the teeth out of America's bite. You have Russia, who, according to the CIA director, is saying, yes, they are going to try and mess with our democracy. You had sanctions that were nearly universally approved that were meant to punish Russia not only for election meddling, but for many other things. And you still have a Russia that is still reportedly selling billions of dollars of arms to allies, because specifically isn't defined in the bill, and thus you're not dealing with exacts. They're essentially saying, it's not a lot, it's not a big deal. That still seems pretty damn crazy, and playing the ally angle is very weird for the White House when the whole mindset, I think, is supposed to be make America great again. It's nationalism versus globalism. But all of that said, I do want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here? Do you think this exposes something, it shows us something, or you think, no, you understand the mindset, you understand the argument of not enforcing these sanctions? I'd love to know what you're thinking and why. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. And remember, if you liked this video, you like what I'm trying to do on this channel, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss these daily videos, which actually, if you did miss yesterday's Philip DeFranco show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you need something lighter, click right here to watch the newest behind the scenes vlog. But that's it, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.